On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected.
Thank you to all our amazing channel members for your generous support.
Paul Walker lost his life in a violent car crash in 2013, a moment that stunned both Hollywood and the global public. His death, sudden and catastrophic, reflected the paradoxes of an era fascinated by speed, celebrity, and the blurred line between on-screen identity and real-world vulnerability. Walker, known for a film franchise built around fast cars and kinetic danger, was offset when the fatal accident occurred. Yet the tragedy echoed the very themes that defined his career. It underscored how modern culture often elevates high-risk lifestyles, while simultaneously revealing how fragile even its brightest stars can be. The crash had immediate emotional shockwaves. Fans gathered at the scene, cast members issued devastated statements, and production of the next film in his signature franchise was halted. The industry scrambled not only to mourn a beloved actor, but also to decide how to complete a major film without him. This challenge led to a groundbreaking blend of digital technology and creative storytelling to honor his unfinished work. His brothers stepped in as stand-ins, and visual effects artists constructed a respectful tribute that blended performance, memory, and cinematic innovation. The result was a farewell scene that resonated deeply with audiences, turning what could have been a simple recasting decision into an iconic moment of collective mourning. In the years that followed, Walker's death amplified his legend. His humanitarian efforts, particularly his ocean conservation work and disaster relief organization, came to the forefront, reframing his legacy beyond his action star persona. Fans and colleagues highlighted his quiet generosity and humility, qualities sometimes overshadowed by his public image. Memorial drives, charitable events, and annual tributes continued to reinforce his place in cultural memory, showing how communities construct legacy through repeated acts of remembrance. His passing speaks to humanity's enduring struggle with the tension between power and fragility. We admire those who live boldly, yet their sudden departure forces us to confront our own impermanence. Walker is immortalized through films, murals, charitable foundations, and the emotional rituals shared by millions who felt connected to his work. His story demonstrates how art and commemoration transform a life abruptly ended into a legacy that continues to evolve, shaped not only by how he lived, but by how the world chose to remember him. Tiny Tim passed away in 1996 after collapsing from a heart attack during a live performance, a moment that captured both the fragility and devotion of an entertainer who never abandoned the stage. His death, the result of long-standing cardiac issues, was natural, yet intertwined with the relentless commitment that defined his era of performance. In a time when novelty acts and eccentric personalities were often pushed aside by evolving cultural tastes, he insisted on performing wherever he was welcomed, embodying an old-world showman's belief that the audience must always come first. Collapsing mid-song reflected that unwavering dedication, an artist giving everything, even as his health deteriorated. The immediate aftermath of his passing brought renewed attention to a performer who had once been a household name during the late 1960s. At the height of his fame, he was known not merely as a novelty singer, but as a cultural phenomenon, embracing falsetto vocals, ukulele charm, and a theatricality that mirrored the era's experimentation with identity and performance. His death prompted a wave of nostalgia as fans and commentators reconsidered his place in American entertainment history. For many, it also highlighted how fickle celebrity can be. After years of reduced visibility, his sudden departure sparked discussions about the pressures and vulnerabilities faced by performers who had experienced extreme highs, followed by quieter decades. His legend was undeniably amplified after his death. Tributes across television, radio, and print re-established him as a symbol of joyful eccentricity and emotional sincerity. Some saw him as a reminder of a more whimsical, less cynical entertainment landscape, while others pointed to his unwavering gratitude, humility, and devotion to his craft. His music saw a brief resurgence, and memorabilia, ukuleles, vinyl records, and archival footage became tokens of a bygone cultural moment. Reflecting on his passing reveals deep truths about humanity's relationship with memory and mortality. We often immortalize those who dared to be different, especially when their individuality radiated sincerity rather than spectacle. Tiny Tim continues to be celebrated through tribute concerts, archival releases, and affectionate portrayals in documentaries. His story shows that legacy is crafted not only by fame, but by the emotional imprint an individual leaves behind. Through art, media, and collective memory, society elevates figures like him, individuals who remind us that authenticity, however unconventional, can endure far beyond a final curtain call. George H.W. Bush passed away in 2018 at the age of 94, his death the result of natural causes after years of declining health. His departure marked the end of an era defined by Cold War transitions, diplomatic restraint, and a form of public service that emphasized steadiness over spectacle. His final years reflected the challenges of an aging political generation, one shaped by global conflict and committed to institutional stability. As a statesman who valued quiet leadership, the peaceful nature of his passing mirrored the understated manner in which he often approached political life. The immediate aftermath of his death brought a wave of bipartisan reflection. Political figures across the spectrum, many of whom had once opposed his policies, spoke of his integrity, humility, and dedication to public service. His passing prompted renewed interest in the geopolitical shifts of the early 1990s, the fall of the Soviet Union, the reunification of Germany, and the carefully calibrated diplomacy that characterized his presidency. As many historians noted, his cautious approach helped avoid destabilizing outcomes during a moment of unprecedented global transformation. With his death, conversations resurfaced about the virtues and limitations of moderation in an increasingly polarized age. His legend was undeniably amplified as the public reconsidered his legacy. Long overshadowed at times by more dramatic political figures, Bush became a symbol of a different kind of leadership, one grounded in coalition building, pragmatism, and civic responsibility. Documentaries, retrospectives, and academic analyses highlighted achievements that had previously been underappreciated, such as the skillful management of the Gulf War coalition and the signing of the Americans with Disabilities Act. The state funeral that followed, steeped in tradition and ceremony, further elevated his image as a guardian of institutional continuity. Reflecting on his passing reveals deeper truths about humanity's relationship with power, memory, and the desire for stability. Bush's life and death illustrate how societies often look backward in times of uncertainty, searching for steady figures whose leadership felt reassuring. Through libraries, public programs, and educational initiatives, his legacy continues to be preserved. His presidential library stands not only as a repository of documents, but as a storytelling space where his life is narrated through exhibits, oral histories, and public events. In these commemorations, we see how history immortalizes those who shaped pivotal transitions, reminding us that leadership, at its most enduring, is often measured not by bold declarations, but by the quiet force of responsibility and restraint. Oscar Wilde died in 1900 after years of declining health, the result of complications from meningitis. His final chapter unfolded in exile in Paris, far removed from the brilliant salons and theatrical triumphs that once defined his life. The quiet, somber nature of his death stood in stark contrast to the flamboyant wit and glittering celebrity he had cultivated during the height of Victorian culture. In many ways, the circumstances surrounding his passing reflected the rigid moralism of his era, an age in which personal identity and artistic freedom were often stifled by social convention and legal persecution. His decline followed the devastating consequences of his imprisonment for gross indecency, a charge rooted in the prejudices of the time. Emerging from prison physically weakened and socially destroyed, Wilde spent his final years wandering Europe under an assumed name, financially strained yet still intellectually luminous. His death symbolized the tragic cost of moral hypocrisy in late 19th century Britain, a period deeply conflicted between outward respectability and hidden desires. For many contemporaries, his passing served as a quiet reminder of how society could elevate and destroy its artists with equal fervor. The immediate consequences of Wilde's death were surprisingly muted. His reputation had been battered, his plays largely ignored, and his books out of print in Britain. Yet almost immediately after his passing, a reevaluation of his work began. Younger writers and critics admired his courage, his dedication to beauty, and his sharp critique of Victorian norms. Within just a few decades, Wilde transformed from a scandalized exile into a cultural icon. His death, in effect, amplified his legend, enabling new generations to view him not as a cautionary tale, but as a martyr of artistic freedom and personal authenticity. Today, Wilde's memory is kept alive through statues, biographies, film adaptations, and academic study. His grave in Père Lachaise Cemetery has become a pilgrimage site for admirers around the world, marked by a striking modernist sculpture that reflects both his suffering and his enduring impact. His life and death underscore humanity's complicated relationship with genius, morality, and memory. Through art and commemoration, society often redeems those it once condemned, transforming their tragedies into timeless reminders of the power of individuality, creativity, and the courage to challenge oppressive norms. Christine McVie died in 2022 from complications following a stroke, passing away peacefully after a brief illness. Her death was natural, yet it carried a profound emotional weight given her role as one of the defining voices and creative forces of Fleetwood Mac. In many ways, the circumstances of her passing reflected the values of an era that increasingly celebrated introspection, artistic vulnerability, and the quiet resilience of musicians who shaped modern culture without seeking the constant spotlight. Unlike the turbulent stories often associated with rock legends, McVie's departure was calm and reflective, mirroring her lifelong presence as the steady, soulful anchor within one of the most famously chaotic bands in rock history. Her passing had immediate consequences that echoed across the music world. Tributes poured in from fellow musicians, fans, and critics who recognized her as both a gifted songwriter and a grounding spirit within Fleetwood Mac's volatile dynamics. Hits such as Songbird, Are Everywhere, and You Make Loving Fun returned to streaming charts, a testament to how her music continued to resonate across generations. Her bandmates expressed that her loss was not only personal, but transformative, marking the end of an era for the group and prompting reflections on the fragile balance of creativity, interpersonal conflict, and emotional honesty that had defined their legacy. McVie's death undeniably amplified her legend. While she was often overshadowed in public perception by the more dramatic figures of the band, her passing shifted attention toward her quiet brilliance. Critics and fans began revisiting her catalog with renewed appreciation, highlighting her role as the architect of some of Fleetwood Mac's most enduring melodies. Her distinctive songwriting, warm, grounded, and deeply human, became a focal point for understanding the band's emotional heart. Her departure invites broader reflection on humanity's relationship with memory and artistic legacy. McVie's music endures not through spectacle, but through sincerity, reminding us that cultural power often lies in subtlety rather than spectacle. We immortalize her through tribute concerts, renewed critical attention, biographical works, and countless personal memories tied to her songs. Statues, documentaries, and memorial performances ensure her voice remains alive. But it is the intimate connection listeners feel when her music plays that truly preserves her legacy. In remembering her, we acknowledge how artists shape emotional landscapes and how their absence deepens the meaning of the art they leave behind. Jim Nabors passed away in 2017 from natural causes, leaving behind a legacy that spanned decades of television, music, and comedy. Known for his iconic portrayal of Gomer Pyle on The Andy Griffith Show and Gomer Pyle, USMC, Nabors' death reflected an era in which television brought wholesome, approachable characters into the homes of millions, shaping American cultural values around humor, kindness, and simplicity. In many ways, his passing marked the fading of a generation of entertainers who embodied warmth and sincerity in an increasingly fast-paced and complex media landscape. The immediate consequences of his death were felt across both the entertainment industry and popular culture. Tributes poured in from colleagues, fans, and media outlets, celebrating his gentle humor, rich baritone singing voice, and remarkable ability to connect with audiences across age groups. His musical career, which included albums of popular and gospel songs, was revisited and appreciated anew, underscoring the enduring charm of his talents beyond the television screen. For many, Nabors symbolized a nostalgic connection to mid-20th century American entertainment, where characters of decency and earnestness provided comfort during times of social and political change. Neighbors' passing amplified his legend in ways both intimate and cultural. While he had been beloved for decades, his death prompted renewed appreciation for his contributions to television and music. Reruns of his shows and retrospective features highlighted his unique ability to blend humor with heart, reminding audiences that the most enduring figures are often those who resonate quietly yet profoundly in the public consciousness. His character, Gomer Pyle, became emblematic of innocence, loyalty, and unwavering optimism, qualities that resonated as timeless ideals even beyond their original cultural moment. Reflecting on Neighbor's life and passing reveals how humanity grapples with mortality and memory. We immortalize figures like him through recorded performances, documentaries, and ongoing public remembrance, preserving not only the art they created, but the values they embodied. His legacy underscores the power of kindness, humor, and artistry in shaping cultural memory, illustrating that true immortality lies in the joy and inspiration a figure leaves in the lives of others. Through media, storytelling, and personal recollection, Jim Nabors remains a cherished presence, a reminder of a gentler, earnest corner of American entertainment history. Gene Parker passed away in 2005 from natural causes, closing the final chapter on a life that had spanned the golden age of Hollywood. Rising to fame in the 1930s, Parker embodied the charm, resilience, and versatility expected of actresses in an era when the studio system dominated American cinema. Her death reflected not only the inevitable passing of a generation of performers, but also the fading of a cinematic style rooted in elegance, narrative simplicity, and star-driven storytelling. The immediate consequences of her passing were marked by quiet reflection among classic film enthusiasts and historians who recognized Parker's contributions to the era's defining works. Known for roles in films such as Little Women and Drums, along the Mohawk, she was admired for her ability to convey sincerity and emotional depth, qualities that contrasted with the emerging trends of method acting and blockbuster spectacle. Parker's death prompted retrospectives that highlighted the enduring appeal of her performances and reminded audiences of the subtleties and craftsmanship characteristic of early Hollywood acting. Her passing also amplified her legend in nuanced ways. While she had not been as widely recognized as some of her contemporaries, the renewed attention following her death allowed new generations to discover her work. The retrospective appreciation of Parker's filmography underscored the lasting power of performance, grounded in authenticity and quiet talent, rather than flamboyance or controversy. Her legacy, preserved in classic film archives and home media, serves as a touchstone for understanding the aesthetics and values of 1930s and 1940s cinema. Reflecting on Parker's life and death reveals broader truths about humanity's relationship with mortality and memory. Through art, we preserve not only the image but the essence of cultural figures, granting them a form of immortality that outlives the temporal limits of life. Commemoration through film restoration, biographies, and scholarly critique allows audiences to engage with her artistry long after her passing. In celebrating John Parker, we honor the enduring capacity of cinema to capture emotion, societal values, and the human spirit, demonstrating how memory and cultural preservation intertwine to keep the influence of notable figures alive across generations.